Hey, so this is my 2 pence on the documentary Light Girls that was premiered on OWN in America last week. I watched it last night. It's on YouTube, so you can watch the whole documentary on YouTube. Now, a lot of things I have to say some people may not agree with, some people may not feel the same way, but this is my 2 pence on this documentary. I watched Dark Girls nearly 2 years ago. I was thinking about it, it's like nearly 2 years ago, and I made a review video about that. I will leave that down below so you can check that out. Now, there were certain things about this documentary that I really was like, really, is this what we're doing? Because I could only really compare it to Dark Girls. If it was made on its own without Dark Girls, then it could have its own space and its own substance and own weight. But because there was a Dark Girls, the only thing you can really compare it to is Dark Girls. So that is where a lot of my opinion comes from, because it's in comparison. And even if it was to stand alone, it wouldn't really hold a lot of weight by itself. It was very, I don't know what the correct word for it, but to me, this documentary could have been so much more than what it was. Now, I have to kind of talk about my experience and me as a person who's black and of colour. Living in the UK, our experience of black history is not the same as American history. And a lot of people in the UK who are black tend to get their history or identity from American culture. I can't do that. I've never lived in America. I've visited America, you know, a few times, but I've never lived there. I wasn't born there. I wasn't raised there. So my experience comes from the black British experience and the black Caribbean experience. And the reason I say British is because I don't really identify with British culture. To ask me, am I black British? I wouldn't really take that term on, because it's not something that I really identify with. I more identify with my Caribbean history and that side of me. I don't really, you know, I don't feel like I identify with a lot of British culture. So that is why I term myself as Afro-Caribbean or Black Caribbean. The British thing has always been a bit for me. My view on this documentary can't really be the same as someone living in America, because our experiences of blackness or being black is different. It's just what it is. Some people like to identify themselves with American culture. If you wish to do that, you can do that. But if you've never lived there, you wasn't raised there, it doesn't make any sense. My understanding of what a light-skinned woman is somebody who is fully black who happens to be light. Now, in some regards, I'm considered as light-skinned. I have never ever called myself light-skinned. I have never ever termed myself as light-skinned. And it's not until probably, I think it was New Year's Eve, a guy was like, look at that light-skinned girl. And that's the first time I have heard a guy reference me as light-skinned. Now, some people may think that's ignorant. Some people may think, how can you not even think that? But I consider myself as brown, okay? I've always been called browning or brown skin, or some people call me mocha, like that kind of complexion. I've never considered myself as light-skinned because my younger sister is a lot lighter than me, and I would consider her light skin, not me. But me in comparison to someone like Lupita, I would be considered light skinned. So I think it all depends in what context we're really doing this comparison. But for some people, they would consider me light skinned. I don't like to consider myself any shade other than being black or a brown skinned woman. I don't really get into the whole light skin, dark skin thing. So if it makes you comfortable to classify me as light skin, fair enough. My kind of relation to this documentary, if you want to call it that, there were parts of it that I could definitely identify with. The part where there was a girl who was standing against like a white post and she was talking about people always ask her what she is. They tried to make her kind of identify her blackness. She never felt black enough. I have been there. I've done a video about this on this channel called Am I Black Enough, where when I was in secondary school, which if you're watching this from America, high school, I was always questioned about my blackness. I was always questioned about how black I was. My hair texture wasn't like the other black girls. I had, like, I would say the longest hair of my year group as a black girl, and I was always questioned about my hair texture, always questioned about my hair length. Why is my hair so long? Why is my hair so curly? Why is my complexion the way it is? Why do I speak the way I speak? Why do I act the way I act? Oh, I'm not black enough because I don't talk like the other black girls. Oh, I don't do this. Oh, I don't do that. And I always felt like, am I black? Like, not in that sense, but in relation to what these girls were classifying black as, I didn't fit into that box. And it used to kind of frustrate me. It used to make me feel like, okay, where do I fit? And that was me taking on their comments and not really thinking for myself. But at the age of 14, 15, you don't know who you are. You don't have a clue about racial things like this. I was very, very educated on black history, but I didn't really think about these kind of circumstances. And when people are telling you those things, you don't know how to really react to it other than feeling insecure about your blackness as such. So that is how I felt. And I constantly get asked, am I mixed? I get asked, what are you mixed with? You can't be fully black. You must have Indian in you. You have to be East African. Are you Somalian? Are you Eritrean? Are you Ethiopian? And I completely understand where those questions come from. For a while, I couldn't understand why people kept asking me these questions. And I don't think it's until I kind of explored the pool of blackness, if you want to call it that, and the different shades and types of black, that I could really understand why these questions were being. I do know I look East African, okay? I've seen East African women. I have East African friends who, if you were to put us next to each other, you'd probably think we're sisters or cousins. I understand that identification, I get it. But if you're gonna ask me a question and I give you an answer and you don't feel that answer is valid, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say to make you feel like you need a clearer answer than the fact that my mother is black and my dad is black, okay? My mother's side is from Barbados and my dad's side is from Jamaica. That is the way it is. So that question of who you are and what you are, I get that all the time, and I completely identified with that part of the documentary. I was like, know that. I know what that is. I get that. Cool. Parts that frustrated and kind of side-eyed and was like, okay. About 80% of the women who were giving their view were mixed. And I couldn't understand why they were in this documentary. Because if you're going to do a documentary called Light Girls in comparison or as a pairing to dark girls, then these women need to be fully black. Because where were the dark-skinned mixed race women in Dark Girls giving their opinion about being mixed and dark? I don't remember seeing any of them. So if we're really going to talk about light girls on a spectrum of being light mixed, light Asian, then it needs to be a completely different documentary. It can't be as in comparison to Dark Girls. And the reason I have to say in comparison to, because they were made by the same person, so it's always going to be compared to. And if there was no Dark Girls, then it could stand by itself, but there was. Now, my understanding and, you know, what I identify as black is somebody who has two full black parents. If you are of one black parent and one white parent, you are mixed race. You are not black. And in older times, slavery times, you would be considered black, but we're not in those times no more. It's 2014. We do not have classification, you know, written on us as stock to be sold. That is not what we are doing these days. So I do not understand, and I've never really understood, why those who are mix of white and black like to identify as black, because you are not. Without your white parent, you wouldn't be here. So I can't really accept somebody being mixed of black and white, giving me their black experience, because, I mean, in comparison to someone who's fully black, because your experience will never ever hold the same weight. It never ever will. You can't say that you know what it feels like to be a light-skinned black woman when one of your parents is white. And if you grew up in a household with your white parent, you're going to have complete different experiences to someone who was brought up with two black parents. So you really can't give an opinion on what it's like to be light skinned and black, because you're not. I was just like, I don't get this. I don't understand why they have so many mixed race women giving their opinion about being black and light skin, because you can identify with whatever you feel. If you are mix of white and black and you want to identify as black, that is fine, but you still have to acknowledge the fact that one of your parents is white. In Britain, we don't have the one drop rule. We never had the one drop rule. It never existed in Britain. That is an American terminology and history. So I can't identify with the one drop rule in Britain. I can't. It doesn't exist here. It never had. And it doesn't make sense to me. It never really made sense to me, and in today's time it just doesn't have any relevance to anything. It just doesn't make any sense, because that was used for a industry to survive. That wasn't used for anything else other than identification in a certain industry. That industry no longer exists in the space it used to, so we can no longer use that identification system for today, because it has no relevance. It just has no relevance. And you saying that you understand what it's like to be black and your woes and your stories and all this stuff in comparison to a woman who's dark skinned and fully black, it just has no it's not valid. It's not valid. It can't be valid. It cannot be valid, because this experience and story is not the same. Now, if you had someone who was fully black and happened to be light skinned, like my younger sister, then she can have an opinion in comparison to maybe my life, or my other sister who's darker than both of us, her life. We could all sit here and have our opinions on what it's like to be black and be in different shades of black. We could completely have that conversation, and it would have validation because we've both got the same mother and father who are fully black. So that conversation can have weight. But I can't sit here with a mixed race woman and have a conversation about being black and her opinion be the same validation as mine, because her experience is completely different. And a lot of these women had white mothers, so having a white mother and a black mother is completely different. Our stories, our experiences are completely different. So I can't take these opinions as valid, and you can do whatever you want with that. You can say I'm ignorant, you can say whatever, but I just can't watch a program about being light skinned and black and these women are not fully black. I just couldn't get with it. I just really couldn't. That was a disconnect for me. It was a complete disconnect. Now, there were certain points made about you know, being lighter skinned, I was more sexualized in the household. So if you're lighter skinned, you're more likely to be raped. Rape is rape, okay? That is just like saying if I wore less clothes in the household, then I was more likely to be raped. Rape does not have a preference, okay? Rape is a completely different mindset. That is just over there somewhere, okay? Saying that you felt like the reason you got raped was because you were light skinned, I just can't with that. I don't know. Yeah, that is, I'll leave that there. I don't know what really that has to do with anything. I just was like, okay, if that's how you feel, but okay. Women always describe themselves as beautiful or pretty. They saw this pretty light-skinned girl and they got jealous. They saw this beautiful light-skinned girl with beautiful hair and they got jealous. I'm talking about dark-skinned women in general. There was really never any praise of beauty other than speaking about Lupita, who, I'm glad somebody said it, is gonna die out soon. Lupita is gonna have a short term, because the industry isn't really rocking with her like that. They don't really care for her like that. She's bringing in money right now for that industry for them, but she ain't really doing what they really want her to do. One thing that would have been great is if they didn't interview so many actresses, so many comedians. It would have been great to just talk to the girl off the street. Like, if you work in a certain industry, you're gonna experience a certain thing to do with colorism. If you work in the acting world, there's gonna be a certain level of colorism because of the history of acting and Hollywood. So there is a certain expectation of entering that industry as a woman of color. You're gonna experience certain things. So having so many actresses give their 2 pence about this really didn't give any relation to an everyday girl who may be light skinned, who doesn't live in that world, who just does what she does day to day. She can't really relate to that because she doesn't live in that world. Whereas dark girls, the documentary, had a lot more normal, non-famous people giving their views. This one had like, let's find all the light-skinned actresses we can find and put them into this show. That's what it felt like. Let's find all these comedians. Like, I think whoever did the casting or selection really missed the mark. It was, you know, Tatiana Ali is not light-skinned. why was she in this documentary? The only thing she could really relate to probably was the story about hair and the good hair, bad hair thing, if that's what this documentary was really talking about, or the whole Caribbean aspect. But she's not, I don't consider Tatiana Ali light skinned. The girl that played her sister in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Hillary, she's light skinned. Tatiana Ali isn't. I didn't get that. I was just like, okay, whatever. I also felt like there were parts in it that might have been, I think it was edited really bad. I feel like there's parts that should have really been expanded on, and I feel it's because they had too many people in the documentary, not really giving a long enough viewpoint. Like, for instance, India Irie being in it. Now, she could have spoken about the backlash she had about her album cover, where people were saying that she was bleaching her skin. She could have spoken about that point and, you know, what came from that. But instead, she started singing a song about finding the light. And light. I just... too many comedians in there just make the whole situation so comical. Like, it's not a comical situation. And I know a lot of people, to hide fear or to hide insecurity, they make jokes. And I feel like that's what a lot of people were doing, like, trying to make a laughing situation out of it, and it wasn't something to be laughing at. There's people out here who have been, you know, abused and stuff, and you're making a joke about this whole light skin, dark skin thing. It's not really something you laugh about, unless you're gonna have, you know, unless you're in a different space. You can't really be laughing about these things in a serious documentary about light skinned people. You can't really do that. The whole thing about the men and their comparison to light skinned women being trophies, we've always kind of known that in the black community. We've always understood that when an athlete makes it or an artist makes it, they never really have a dark-skinned woman on their arm. They never really go after a dark-skinned woman. It's always this light, bright, near white woman that they have. And we've known that for a very long time. And in the UK, we don't have the basketball players like that. We have football players who do have that also, who either have a white woman or have a light-skinned black woman or a mixed race woman. I've never really seen a footballer with a dark-skinned woman. They feel like having this lighter woman makes them more attractive, or they can pass more. It's easier to be accepted because they have this woman on their arm. They feel like they get more validation from other people because they have this woman on their arm. And that I've seen a lot of. I remember Sunday I went out and I saw so many mixed couples, and it was like, is no one really dating black women no more? Like, really and truly. And I said a post about it on Instagram, like, I have so much love for black men. Like, my preference is not white. I've never been attracted to white men. I have white men approach me and I'm just, it's not my thing. It's just not my thing. And recently, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, it's just been in my face that when I go out, I don't really see a lot of black couples. And I say that because the spaces I usually go to, a lot of black people, okay? So I think that's the correct space for me to identify that. I don't see a lot of black couples. I really don't. All my black male friends don't have a black girlfriend, and I have a lot of black male friends. I'm saying, like, close friends, probably a space of 10. If we're going to go a group of 10, not one of the 10 has a black girlfriend. When there's clubs I've been to which are predominantly black clubs, there's this big influx of white women in there who weren't in there 5 years ago. And when you're in the club, these black guys are not going for black girls. They automatically go for the white woman who, and I don't even mean to be, you know, you can call this ignorant, who is not really that attractive in comparison to some of the black girls in there. And it's like, you're going to go dance with her in comparison to her. Okay. Cool, do what you're doing. I see this, and I've seen this for a very, like, and it's just like, there's been this whole promotion of white women who have black features and they're more attractive than black women. You've got the Kim Kardashian, you've got the Amber Rose, you've got now the Kylie Jenner with the lips, and it's like, well, full lips. Black women have always had full lips. Now all of a sudden, because a white woman has full lips, it's cool, it's fashionable, it's sexy, it's attractive. But wait, the black woman with the full lips isn't attractive. There's those kind of things that are going on that I see all the time. And having guys in that documentary was cool, but a lot of the opinions they gave were just not valid. They were just stupid opinions, some of them. A lot of jokes were made and ha ha ha. Well, I don't think I've ever had a dark skinned woman. Actually, if I go through my list, I think I've only had, well, actually I haven't. All my girls have been light, but it's not my preference. As a light skinned woman, as a dark skinned woman, you're both angry, you're both upset, you both have experiences that made you feel less than or not enough or not validated. But those experiences are very similar, and we need to start comparing them and sit down and have these conversations and think, how are we going to come to a neutral ground as two black women living in the white world? How are we actually going to progress together, instead of you sitting over there and me sitting over there and you feel like you can't speak to me because you're lighter than me, or you can't talk to me because you're darker than me? Like, it makes no sense, because at the end of the day we're all black. Light skin black, dark skin black, you're still black. You're just a different hue or shade of brown. That's all it is. The whole thing about white privilege and advantage and being light skin. When you are light skin, there are certain privileges and advantages that you have over people who are dark skin. And a lot of the people that were in this documentary did not acknowledge them, except I think a couple. There was that lady, and I can't remember her name. She's a journalist, Soledad O'Brien. If I said her name wrong, then I'm sorry. She's the only person who said that because of her complexion and her hair and everything like that is the reason why she is a news reporter or a journalist, and the people in her industry all look like her. If you used to put them next to each other, they would look like sisters. And she understood that she had the correct look for that position, for that job, for that career. She acknowledged that, and that is the main reason, not the main reason, obviously she's great at what she does, but one of the reasons as to why she is where she is and she is who she is. And a lot of the other people didn't want to really acknowledge that space. They had this whole woe is me, I was too beautiful, I was too pretty, it was like, what it didn't make any sense to me. Like, if you're really going to talk about this, you have to have an honest conversation when it comes to race, otherwise we are going to completely be stuck as usual. People say it's 2014, we should be moved on. The reason we haven't moved on is because the problem hasn't been solved, okay? We haven't healed as a race. We are still dealing with post-traumatic stress from slavery. We're still dealing with it. We still have mental issues to do with racial issues and acceptance, and wanting to be accepted so bad, or wanting to pass so bad, that we will never really truly get over certain things because we haven't healed. And as much as they had that little part at the end about healing and moving forward, and then you had this white woman talking about we are all atoms in the universe and we're all the same, and you know, this is all, I don't know why she was in it. What credit did she have to this thing to come in and say this? As it was like, this doesn't affect me, but what I can tell you is that we are all one, and this whole all lives matter, that she's going off of that thing, we're all one and we all should be together in the land of joy and rainbow, and this issue is basically stupid. That's what it kind of felt like she was saying. It just, I always feel like I'm going to continually talk about this subject to the end of time, and it's never really going to be dealt with until we have an honest conversation with ourselves and each other. One guy said on there that truth is a religion, and that is so real. Like, if you don't live in your truth or stand in your truth or your realness, you will never ever really understand who you are or what life is about. If you completely live with rose-colored glasses on and you think that everything is all peachy cream at the end of the day and everything's all good as long as it don't affect you, then I don't know what world you're on. I don't really understand where you are, because in the world I'm in, there is a lot of issues right now. There's craziness going on, and until you acknowledge that, I don't know where you really stand. I can't really take your notion on viewpoint seriously. I just can't. The documentary about colorism, do one documentary called Colorism, okay, or the black issue, or the hues of brown. Like, do something that involves everybody, because from the day you split the two sides, that is when the issue begins. That's where the issue began. Because I don't know if Dark Girls was made to just show you the dark girl experience and that be it. But if you are real and you understand what world you live in, there's going to be a backlash, and people are going to say, what about the light girl experience? And then you're going to have to do a light girls. So instead of doing that and saving yourself some time, you could have just done one documentary called Colorism and dealt with everything in one documentary and kept it moving. Over it now, I'm just over it. I've seen it. I wouldn't watch it again because I don't really see any need to. It's not something like Roots where I'll show my children in years to come. I don't really feel like there's any reference to watch that again or anything that I really missed. I just don't feel like that documentary really had any weight, to be quite honest. I don't really feel like it was required. I don't feel like it was required unless you're going to do it correctly. If you're going to do a documentary called Light Girls, all the women in this documentary need to be light-skinned black women. That's it. Not light-skinned Asian women or light-skinned mixed race women. They have to all be black women who are light, because Dark Girls was dark women who are black. Want to really get forward in this colorism thing, we need to have honest and open conversations. We really need to, because it's just not going to change, because the mentality is exactly the same. It keeps getting passed down and passed down and passed down, and in order for it to stop, it needs to stop in a way that we speak about it honestly. Like Iyanla says all the time, it's all about paths and pathologies, and this is a pathology that has been going on for too long. And in order for you to really change it, stop sweeping the dust around, stop making it into piles everywhere. Like, clean the dust up properly. Let's stop sweeping it under the carpet and leaving it there till somebody else finds it. It doesn't make any sense. We can't do that. So did you watch Light Girls? What was your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel it was required? Did you feel like it was just missing the mark? How did you feel about it? I completely am over it. I don't actually care for the documentary anymore. I will not watch it again. But do you feel like there was some weight to it? Do you feel like you learned something from it? What are your thoughts on this documentary? I really want to hear it. And leave them down below, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.